In 2015, the world watched in shock as Pope Francis stood before the Pontifical Academy of Sciences and declared something that sent ripples across both the scientific community and religious circles. Pope Francis said, "The Big Bang, which today we hold to be the origin of the world, does not contradict the intervention of the divine creator, but rather requires it." Imagine that, the head of the Catholic Church endorsing the Big Bang and evolution. To some, this felt like the Church was abandoning faith. To others, it was a long-overdue reconciliation with science. But there was outrage. Some Catholics felt betrayed. Others claimed that evolution denies the very heart of the Christian faith: Adam and Eve, original sin, the fall. On the other side, many atheists sneered, saying, "See, the Church is just trying to catch up with science." So where does that leave us? Can you be Catholic and believe in evolution? Can you trust science and still have faith in God? Therefore, let's explore this together. Let's clear the fog between faith and reason, because maybe, just maybe, the two were never meant to be enemies in the first place. To understand the tension between faith and science, we need to rewind history. Think about Galileo in the 1600s, the man who dared to say that the earth revolves around the sun. The Church, interpreting scripture literally at the time, condemned his view. These are valid concerns. He was labeled a heretic, forced to recant, and lived under house arrest until his death. For centuries, this incident painted the Church as anti-science. It became the classic symbol of the war between science and religion. But that's not the full story. What most people don't know is that Galileo himself was a Catholic. Many scientists before and after him, like Gregor Mendel, the father of genetics, and Georges Lemaitre, the priest who proposed the Big Bang theory, were faithful Catholics. So why does the myth persist that faith and science can't coexist? Here's the thing. The Catholic Church has never officially opposed scientific discovery. In fact, the Church teaches something profound: that faith and reason are two wings on which the human spirit rises to the contemplation of truth. Pope John Paul II, in 1996, explicitly stated that evolution is more than just a hypothesis. The Church accepts evolution as a valid scientific explanation for the development of life on Earth, as long as we recognize that the human soul is directly created by God. But here's where some people get uncomfortable. If evolution is true, what about Adam and Eve? Was there a literal garden? A talking snake? And if there wasn't a literal Adam and Eve, what happens to the doctrine of original sin? These are valid concerns. Therefore, we have to understand that Scripture often speaks in symbols and theological truths, not always in scientific or historical details. The story of Adam and Eve is not just a history lesson. It's a profound reflection on human nature, freedom, and the reality of sin. Even Pope Benedict XVI emphasized that the Genesis account uses symbolic language to convey truths that remain relevant whether or not we descend from a single original couple. Here's where it gets really interesting. Catholics can believe that the human body evolved from earlier life forms, but the human soul did not. The soul is not a product of evolution. It is a direct creation by God. So, while science can explain the how of our physical development, it cannot explain the why of our existence or the mystery of our souls. This is a key point. Science tells us how the universe works. Faith tells us why it exists. They're answering different questions. Therefore, Catholics can fully embrace scientific discoveries, from the Big Bang to genetics, while holding firm to the belief that every human being is made in the image of God, with a unique, God-given soul. Let me tell you a real-world example of what happens when faith rejects reason. In the early 2000s, certain Christian groups in the U.S. pushed for creationism or intelligent design to be taught instead of evolution in public schools. The result? More division, more skepticism, more young people abandoning their faith. thinking they must choose between believing in God or believing in science. But the Catholic Church never fell into that trap. Instead, it invites us to explore science fully with the confidence that truth cannot contradict truth. Therefore, the more we learn about the universe, the more we can marvel at the mind of the Creator who designed it. Imagine looking up at the night sky, filled with stars formed billions of years ago. You can understand the physics of it, the nuclear fusion, the gravity, the galaxies. But you can also stand in awe, knowing that behind all that complexity is a Creator who called it all into being. This is the Catholic vision, not faith versus science, but faith with science. St. Augustine said it best. If it happens that the authority of sacred scripture is set against clear and certain reasoning, this must mean that the scripture is being misinterpreted. Therefore, we should never fear scientific discovery. Instead, we should approach it with wonder, curiosity, and humility, trusting that every truth we uncover brings us one step closer to the God who is the source of all truth. Yes, Catholics can believe in evolution, the Big Bang, and all that science reveals about the universe, because faith and reason are not enemies. They are partners in the search for truth. But we must always remember that science has its limits. It can tell us how the universe works, but not why we are here or who we are meant to be. Therefore, our faith completes the picture. It gives meaning to the marvels that science reveals. So the next time someone tells you that you must choose between God and science, tell them this: I choose both, because all truth leads to God. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who's ever wondered if faith and science can coexist. Let's keep the conversation going.